everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. And I'm going to, for the first time, introduce this podcast with the name. The last time you heard us, we were debating back and forth on what the name should be. And we listened to y'all. And welcome to the next shift, moving up in the restaurant industry.
Yay. George, why did you pick this name?
I didn't pick it. The people did.
The People.
The people.
But what made you finally sign off on it? What drew you to this name?
I could have somebody lobbied to get this name in the podcast. So, no, it applies to restaurants. And there was like a whole 3 people that voted for it. So that was a majority. So we're sticking with it. We're going to give the people what they want. Remember, the purpose of the podcast is to give people what they want, information that they can use to improve. So that's the whole purpose. So we're gonna stick with that culture and use it on the selection of the title as well.
Wow, we're officially titled, so we're committed, right? We're committed to a whole season of podcasts.
What is a season? How many episodes?
Oh, it depends. I mean, originally, like back in the day, the shows were like 25 episodes, the seasons. Like the novelas usually run for like 100 and something episodes, but I think as people got, I don't want to say lazier, but I think as the human attention span got smaller, the seasons got smaller. So now I think shows have 6 to 8 episodes per season. So it went from like 25 all the way down to 8.
Honestly, I don't need to label the season. I think we're going to record these as we see that they're useful and fit. And if we have something to talk about, I don't want to put ourselves in that mold. Let us make the mold.
What's your quote? You break the mold, or you make it, or what is it?
You make the mold, you break the mold.
And you break the mold. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
So, George, today I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit about what is the difference between a leader versus a manager in your experience?
Before we start, I want to remind everyone that everything that's said in this podcast does not reflect the opinions or the views of Far West Services or any of its affiliates, including Wingstop. So I want to remind everyone that this is my personal opinion on things that I've learned over the years. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands that it's me.
It's you. This is all.
Me.
Do you know what IMO means?
No idea.
In my opinion.
Don't use those again.
Okay. Okay. Anyway.
What was the question again?
We're going to digress back to the question.
Please.
What is the difference between a manager and a leader? Because I think a lot of people think that they're the same thing.
They're not the same thing. And before I answer that, I want to also remind people that a lot of people also think that they need to be one or the other. And I think that that's wrong as well. So it's not the same thing. And they also doesn't mean that you need to be one or the other to be successful and to lead a group. I think you need to be both. So to me, a manager is someone that is following up. It's someone that is incredibly involved and in the operations, in the systems, in the day-to-day, managing through. I mean, literally what the word means, to hold, to manage, and to hold people's hand. And that's, to me, what a manager is. A leader, on the other hand, is someone that, without being as involved, without being as, shoulder to shoulder or holding people's hand, finds ways to be in a position to notice and have an influence to help people and to make them better by influencing, by the way, not telling. I think a manager tells and a leader influences.
Okay, and you said something really interesting that I think I find very, very interesting on what you said with you need to be both. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
There's awesome leaders that have an incredible personality. They get the culture, but they don't manage. And some people need to be managed until they don't. Let me kind of explain that. When you hire someone, you set the expectations, but you need to manage through them. You need to make sure that people that you're show people what the expectations are, be there day to day to make sure that people understand. Then after a few months, sometimes even weeks or years, it depends on the person's abilities, you get to step back and lead them through the rest. But now understanding that they know what they're doing, that they understand what the work is, what the job is, what the responsibilities are. And then as a leader, you get to lead them through it. but leaders have to manage sometimes. And here's the thing, managers sometimes don't have to lead. Those are different things. But I think as a leader, there is an element of management that you have to be good at.
What comes first in people's trajectory of the industry? Do you think people become managers first, or do you think people become leaders, or what's the order of operations in that?
I think people become manager first because they have a task list. They have a training guide that tells them the tasks that they need to complete, making a schedule, doing inventory, giving somebody a write-up because they showed up late to work. So managers have kind of a playbook. And when you become a leader, the difference is, let's say you're the manager of a restaurant and you need to lead through a situation and somebody's late. On the handbook, it says, hey, you need to write this person up because they've been late 3 times. As a leader, you kind of ask follow-up questions, right? You're in a position to notice whether this person, maybe the write-up is not going to be the best end result for this individual. Maybe there's another conversation you need to have with them. So as a leader, you have to determine what is the best thing for this person.
So earlier you talked about making the mold and breaking the mold. So the way I interpret that is, well, if you know the rules, if you know the systems, then as a leader, you can deviate from them and achieve either a better result or a more effective result because you know the system so well to, you can go from it and you can still get the same end result. Is that kind of what you meant?
It's not so much about using different systems. It's more about being able to pivot. Leadership to me is you need to be able to make a change. And that's why I said earlier, as a leader, you need to be in a position to notice. A lot of people have this saying about you hire the best people and you get out of their way. I mean, you can't get out of their way if you haven't really understood if they're going to need you to offer some sort of support and guidance. So I think as leaders, you break the mold, you make the mold and you break the mold. What I mean by that is there's times where as a leader, you come up with the rules and the systems, and then there will be individuals or events that happen that don't fit into that mold specifically to get the right result and to do it the right way. So that's why I see great leaders or managers get stuck on, well, this is what the rule book says, or this is how we always done it. And that is the worst enemy in progress. The notion of, well, this is how we've always done it, and that's why we have to keep doing it. That's the difference to me in leadership, is you need to be able to pivot, to change if you're seeing that things are not the right fit, or if you are hiring new people and they're struggling with the systems that are in place. You can't always blame the individuals or the candidates. At a certain point, you have to look back and say, well, are the systems the right ones? Is the guidance the correct one? Do we need to change? Do we need to pivot? And I think that's important, and that's a distinction between managing through situations and also leading through situations.
After saying that, do you think that the current state of the restaurant industry is more populated by managers or by leaders? Or do you think it's a combination of both? And then a follow-up question to that is, in your perfect restaurant world, would you rather have more managers or more leaders? And what's going to give you a better result?
Yeah, I think it's easier to train a manager, and it's harder to train a good leader. And I think in far ways we have that issue sometimes, right? We put our managers through this training program. It's at 6 weeks now, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And you're teaching them all the theoretical, you're teaching them the practice, but they're not learning when they're going to have to lead, right? And I think that normally that happens when they go back to the restaurants that they're going to be running. They see the team that they have. They understand what the needs are and how to manage them and how to lead them. And then that's when the district manager comes in and the regional operator to be able to help them navigate through that. And I think that's in all the restaurants. When you put someone through training, for the most part, you're ensuring that this person could do the job, which is manage. And then leading comes on the daily interactions. That's part of the development that you're doing on an ongoing basis. But it's so hard that in 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you name that, it could be 2 months or 3 months worth of training. It's incredibly difficult to teach people how to lead. I think that's something that happens as situations arise.
As we talk about teaching, I've heard a lot that you can't teach someone to be a leader, but you can teach someone to be a manager. What are your thoughts on that?
No, that's bullshit.
Why?
Because you can teach someone, I think people learn by the mistakes that they make.
Yes.
And this is, to me, I'm going to say it a third time. It's important for leaders to be in a position to notice. Because if you're noticing that someone's struggling or they made a mistake, you can quickly make them aware of it, and they'll be the first ones to be hard on themselves and say, oh yeah, I should have done, I made that mistake. And that's when you as a leader install those leadership traits in that person and be self-aware, right? Okay, great. You know you did the mistake. What can you do differently? And then that's where you have an influence on what this person will do next time they encounter this issue. So I think you can teach people how to lead. I don't think people are born leaders. I think, I'll tell you what happened to me is like people early on used to tell me that I was very mature for my age. Someone, like one person along the line, told me I was a leader, and I just believed it. But come to realize I screwed up a lot during my career. Like, and even today, like there's still things that I'm learning. So no, you can definitely train a leader. You can definitely develop a leader, and it's probably a little harder than to be a manager, than to train a manager, but I think it's very doable.
I think it requires a lot more muscle work. I can tell you from personal experience, even going back to kindergarten, I always got volunteered or voluntold to like be the head of something, whether that was projects, student government, president, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Halfway through, I didn't start to enjoy it. I didn't start to enjoy being bossy. But in the early ages, it was like, hey, like we need to do this. Who wants to be in charge? And everyone was like, oh, you go do it. And I would do it. But, you know, eventually I did enjoy it. And in high school, I did ASB. I was drum major for the marching band. So I did a lot of stuff. But as you continue to like grow up, you start to realize that a lot of people are afraid to step into a leadership role. Why do you think that is?
They don't want to do the work.
Do you think it's just laziness?
No, it's convenience.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the convenience piece?
We all love comfort. People work because they want to live comfortably. Think about that. The pursuit of most humans is, how can I be comfortable? If I'm cold, how can I be warm? If I'm too hot, how can I cool down? The humans, we look for comfort. So once you find that comfort, why would you expose yourself and be uncomfortable?
I find excitement in uncomfortable.
Yeah, you're weird. And most people that are leaders are, I'll give you an example. Anytime I try something new, I'm uncomfortable. I was wearing my Oura ring yesterday, and I hadn't had stress as I came back from vacation, right? And the first time I felt stress over the last 2 weeks as I've been back was when I went to the golf range and I was hitting some balls. And I was so concerned with how people were looking at me with the weird swing and just slicing the heck out of those golf balls that it made me stress and uncomfortable. It's hard. It's hard for people to feel uncomfortable. When my Oura ring read the stress, I hadn't felt stress for almost 2 weeks. And instead of feeling stress in the job and coming back and being, with a bunch of emails, none of that caused stress because I'm comfortable with work, right? Because I'm comfortable with the situations that happen here. But as soon as they put me in a place where I'm not confident, I'm obviously not good at golf, it raised my stress level.
I'm always in awe when you say that you're not confident in something because you know how to command a room. You have such strong presence to where when you share stuff like that, when you're out of your comfort zone, I'm like, I would have never guessed it. You could have lied to me and said that you were uncomfortable, and I would have like, wow, he's eating up this meeting, or wow, he's really doing that.
Yeah.
Oura, if you're listening, sponsor us. We both have Oura rings and we're obsessed. We've been Oura users for a while. Actually, fun fact, I think I shared this with you actually. I have no work stress with my Oura ring. And I think I showed you the most stress that I get is over the weekends when I'm not working. And I think that's funny.
I think that's control.
What do you mean?
Yeah, you have control.
Okay, true.
About everything that happens and runs through your desk, and you feel confident that things get done and all that. When you're at home, there's things you don't control. That's the reality of it. And just having that schedule, like that what you're going to get done, you have your agenda. And I think at home, you need to figure out like, what am I going to have for dinner? That causes stress for a lot of people. Like, what book am I going to read? You that read a lot of books.
Books, yeah.
Yeah. So you were stressed the other day because Nikki didn't bring you a freaking book to read. So
I was stressed because I had stopped reading for probably like a month maybe. So I had a goal to read a book every month, and I had fallen off that wagon. And part of me was like, okay, well, the ship sailed. I'm not going to catch up. But then I did. So I was looking for a book because I was like, I need to continue my stride or else I'm going to lose my habit.
And that's your stress.
Yeah. Oh, wow. This is a podcast to realize things.
Yeah, but anyway, to me, that's honestly what I think. It's the difference between those that want to be in a position to lead is there is an uncomfortable piece of it. You need to have tough conversations. We need to have a podcast just on that, on how people it's really hard for them to tell someone the truth or to tell someone, hey, you need to get better at this. And that's why a lot of managers will rather use a write-up to have a conversation, and they use they reference the team member manual on attendance or on the uniform because they don't want to have a conversation with them. So they use these tools to manage, and instead of leading through the conversation and having a real conversation about, hey, you're great, but you keep being late. How can I help you not be late? Because the next time we might have to, follow the attendance policy and have to write you up. When I walk into a restaurant, I actually got in trouble with HR a few years ago because of this. When I walk into a restaurant and I see a bunch of signs posted by the GM saying no cell phone allowed, take your breaks on time, and I see the schedule that says no switching shifts, or if you don't come in on time, you will be documented. When I see all these notes and all these posters everywhere in the restaurant, that tells me that the GM it's not leading, they're managing, and they will avoid any type of awkward or difficult conversation in any way they can, by any means. So leadership is about that. And I think that's why a lot of people rather manage than lead, because managing, you have under your arm, you have all these rules and regulations that you can show people, see, you're being bad, instead of leading through it and going and say, hey, I've noticed that your performance isn't great. You haven't been great. What's going on? How can I help you? How can I support you? Because that conversation is harder to have than showing someone the employee handbook.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of the problem with that is as we continue to evolve as humans, I think people don't take feedback as well as they did way back when. I remember when I first started in restaurants, there was a kitchen manager. I'm not going to name her, but she was not mean, but she was just very direct. Back then I was working for Chipotle, so they were all about cut sizes. And, they had a little like transparent sheet where, you had to cube the peppers for the guac and they had to be like a certain size. I think it was 1/8 of an inch. And then if it wasn't...
The fact that you still remember that is impressive.
If it wasn't that size, she was the kitchen manager at the time. She would throw away the entire pan of the jalapenos and she would say, start over. I wasn't very good with the knife at first because obviously I was learning, but damn, the amount of times that I wanted to say like, I'm leaving, but after she, continued to work with me and she continued to be like, no, this is why it's important. Hey, if you don't cut it the size, the cogs is going to happen and, X, Y, Z. She gave me all of the whys. I kind of started to realize that she wasn't doing it because she was bored and she wanted to kind of take a power trip. It was really because she cared. If she didn't care about what I was doing, she could have just let me have the cut sizes.
But she was a little extra. She didn't have to like dump the whole thing in front of you to be dramatic.
I mean,
and that's the leader that I used to be, and sometimes that I still tend to be over dramatic to make a point. And I've learned over the years that doesn't always bring a lot of value. But anyway, and to your point about people not taking feedback as much, yeah, I mean it's a different generation that's come into the workforce, and I don't know if it's that they don't take the feedback. I think there's just we need to learn to talk to them in a different way and lead them in a different way. And that's what I'm talking about, leadership pivots. And managers are stuck with employee handbooks.
I think back then, even if I remember early on, it was like, this is the way to do it. This is the only way to do it. It's my way and it's the only way to do it. And, especially like the more senior people that had been at the restaurant for a lot longer, it was like, we've always done it this way. Like, hey, I discovered an idea. Like, we should try doing this. And, the ability to adapt to something different was like total rocket science to everyone. Even if the idea was good and it would bring operational benefits and all of that, I think that people were more hesitant to adopt it. But, now I think people are they accept change a little bit better. It's still not as good as it should be, but I think part of the reason why the restaurant industry is quickly evolving is because there is a younger mix that's being introduced to it. And I think the younger mix is more susceptible to change with the introduction of technology, AI systems, KDS systems, all that new technology that the restaurants now have. I think people are more able to adopt to it, right?
Yeah. But going back a little bit on the feedback piece, I think for the new generation, it's important to build relationships before they can take your advice.
Oh, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's the difference between manager and leader. Leadership build relationships. So you can sit down and give somebody some advice, and you kind of that person's allowing you to have an influence so that they stay out of trouble and listen and follow the rules. Versus a manager, they don't have that relationship. They're just trying to manage. So you do need to formulate some sort of, and I'm not saying, by the way, take everyone out to the bar and invite everybody to your house and become friends. That's not what I mean. There needs to be healthy boundaries, but there does need to be a relationship with everyone you work with, a working relationship, so that when you have advice, when you have feedback, they truly understand where you're coming from. And it's even more important to be authentic as a leader and as a person. So people, when they hear your feedback, they're like, okay, I know where he's coming from because I know how he feels and about this. He's authentic with me. You come across as authentic. I know this is your message. I know this is your brand. I know this is you talking to me, not someone else trying to get through me with you. So I think it's important to make sure you're authentic and you build those relationships.
I learned that as I started in my role, and as I started to gather a larger team, I realized that, personally speaking, I take feedback more when there's a relationship built, because I know that you're coming from, you understand the way I feel, you understand how I perform, and you're not just telling me feedback just because you want to tell me and you want to, just be mean or whatever. I copied that into my personal style as well. I feel like, to me, it's very important to establish some sort of relationship, because it's not I'm telling you to do this, it's I'm telling you to do this because A, B, C, and D. Or, when there are mistakes made, if I understand the person as a human, I am able to guide them a little bit better because I can see their thought process or I can see their emotions. And that allows me to make better selections on how we can correct the mistake, or if we need to try a completely different approach.
Well, when you know someone, you're more selective with your words because you understand this person's background or even the buttons that you don't need to push. And it gives you an edge and it gives you an advantage on how you can lead this individual, give them feedback, and influence them. At the end of the day, I think the new age of leadership is all about influence. You can't tell someone what to do. You can influence people on making a decision on what to do.
Can you talk a little bit more about what the difference is between telling someone to do something and influencing them? I just started learning this myself, so I kind of want to pick your brain.
I have not perfected the art. Just all,
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. Full transparency. But I am working on it, and I think as I get older, it's easier for me because there was a time when I transitioned from being in the field to being here in the office, and knowing everything that had to do with the field and operations, it was so much easier for me to just tell people what to do because I knew it. As I've been more apart from the field, there's things that I don't know. So I have to find ways to influence rather than just tell, and I have more patience of listening to what the problem is. Example, when I remember vividly when I used to get calls and I was in the car with the kids, and there will be a district manager that called me or a GM that called me, and I wouldn't let them speak fully. They will start telling me the issue and I would interrupt them because I already knew exactly what the problem was and I already knew the solution, and I wanted to save 5 minutes of this phone conversation. So I just cut them off and told them, is this what's happening? Yep. Okay. Well, you need to do this and this and this and this. Okay. Is that good? Yes. Bye. Let me know how it goes. And that was bad and my son actually once told me, he's like, Dad, why don't you let people finish talking? And I told him, because I already know what he's going to say. And he said, it doesn't matter. You need to let people finish and he was like maybe 7, 8 years old, maybe 10. And so I've learned that now that I'm not as involved in the day to day, I've grown this patience to allow people to tell me the whole thing. And I've learned that gives me, first of all, it gives me the time to think about how to support them. It eliminates this idea that I know everything because I don't. That's wrong. And so it's actually helped me. Not knowing everything helps me now even more.
That makes total sense. I think I probably still have that habit at times where I'm like, I don't need to know the rest. I think that this is what we need to do. But it's when you put it like that, it makes total sense. I think that even allowing the other party or the other person to finish their story, I think it gives them some sense of closure and that you're listening to the entire thing before you give them the direction. Even if you already know where the feedback or where the direction is going to go, you're still allowing them to be heard. And I think that that's really important to a lot of people.
And sometimes it's so hard. So I've learned this technique that I bite my lip. So if you see me biting my lip, you know that I'm allowing you to finish because I'm already out of patience and I know how to help you, but I'm waiting for you to tell me again how you need the support. So that technique has worked with me. Like I bite my lip just to allow people to finish.
Okay, I need to implement that.
Well, listening is so important as a leader, right? You have to allow people to tell you everything because that's you always ask for honesty. You always ask for feedback. And if you don't give people the time to tell it to you, then they're not going to come back and ask you for support.
And when people shy away from coming back, I think that just creates a more difficult dynamic, especially to kind of lead them in the right direction. I've had a couple of district managers myself where actually let me go back a little bit more because I have a really funny story. I think I've already told you the cell phone box story. So a long time ago, the restaurant that I was working for had a cell phone policy that they had just rolled out. So
oh yes,
so
this is a fun one.
So the district manager at the time, she didn't want to have a conversation and she didn't want to have any of that. So what she did is she brought one of those small plastic boxes with a lid, and she put
Tupperware.
What's up?
Un Tupperware.
Un topper. Yeah, she brought un topper with the lid, and it had the the big red circle with a cross and a cell phone on it. And she said, everybody, before your shift, you need to put your cell phones in here. And everybody was like, okay, like, are you going to pay for my phone if my phone gets stolen? Where's the box going to live? And at that time, I was a shift leader in charge. So it didn't sit right with me. So, you know, I forget how old I was. I was probably like 20, 21. As a young person would do is after we closed, I took the box, I put it at the very bottom of the trash can, put more trash over it, and then we threw it at the end of the night. And then she came back a couple of days later to visit the restaurant again. And she's like, oh, like, make sure that everybody puts their cell phone in the box.
This was a district manager.
Yes, this was a district manager.
That we both know.
We
will not say names.
We will not say names.
She will listen to this podcast.
But she will listen to this podcast. And I almost said her name.
But she's learned from it.
Yes, she's learned from it.
Yeah.
And she's great now. But she comes back and she's like, oh, everybody put your cell phone in the box. I'm hiding because I'm like, oh, Cheetos. I threw the box away and she's going to get mad. So she starts looking for the box. And at the time, it was in front of like where the filing cabinets were. And she's like, oh, where's the box? And everybody was like, oh, I didn't see anything, you know. Nobody knew that it was me that had thrown it out, but they knew that the box wasn't there because, you know, they put their phones away. And I mean, the policy just said that the cell phone had to be out of sight. That was it. So people could have it in their pocket as long as it was covered, as long as it was silenced. Not a very difficult policy in my opinion. So anyway, the box went missing and she was like, who took the box? I'm going to write you up. You're not supposed to throw away the box, blah, 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 blah. Till this day, nobody, well, I guess now people know it was me.
Did she bring another box?
She didn't.
Yeah.
She didn't because I think she realized that people were not happy putting the cell phones in.
Well,
people asked her, who's going to pay for my phone if it gets stolen?
But she had never been a district manager before.
That's true.
This was the first time she was.
Yep.
And she was growing into that management phase, into this leadership phase, right? Mm-hmm. And when you start a new role, you're uncomfortable and you're trying to not have the conversations. So by bringing the box, she would say, well, I know everyone's going to listen to, and you know what happened, right? The GM probably went to her and said, hey, despite the policy, people continue to use their phones. What do I do? And she was probably just helping the GM by bringing this box and helping the GM not have the conversations. But all of this was just to avoid having a conversation with maybe one or two team members that were abusing it. And then everybody was affected. So again, those are the difference between managing and leading. What she should have done is sit down with those two team members with the GM, have that conversation together, and you're helping the GM learn how to have these conversations. You're avoiding everyone else to suffer. And it's also against the law to take people's phones and put them in the safe. I mean, that's ridiculous. You know, it's the same thing as what I said earlier about people posting things versus having the conversation. And the problem is the field, the managers and the DM sometimes need or want these rules that are written so they don't have to have the conversation with people, right? They can just say, here's the rule book. You need to follow it. Our policy, our cell phone policy is very lenient.
Yeah.
You can have your cell phone with you as long as we can see it and we can hear it, right? And so I think it is sometimes difficult to manage it because people have their phone with them all the time. They can pull it out in a second, look at it, and they can put it back in. But again, if you have these conversations with team members, if you have a relationship and you can have these conversations with them, the policy shouldn't be hard to follow or hard to
adhere to.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, on the cell phone, everything calmed down after that. Nobody found out, so you guys heard it here first. It was me. Surprise! I threw away the cell phone box. It was me. Guilty.
I think people knew it was you.
No,
We have cameras.
we didn't at that time. We had I think two or three, not as many as now.
I'm sure we had cameras. We had a minimum of 4.
Pull up the receipts right now. Pull them up.
We can't. It was years ago.
Anyway, back to the manager versus leader. Can you tell me about the most influential leader that you have worked with and why that person was the most influential leader?
That is a very hard question because I think a lot of people are going to be mad or upset or disappointed that I'm not going to say their name. It's funny because my sister heard the other podcast and she's like, it will be great for you to talk about, your mentors and people that you've mentored. And my answer was, I haven't had any mentors. And because to me, a mentor is like someone you call all the time that is, that you can, it's a resource for you and it's available all the time. And I don't have that. And part of it is my fault. There's been plenty of great leaders around me, but I think I have a very unique style. And I've always wanted to do and be who I think I wanted to be and not be too influenced by other styles. So, but there's been people that have shown me great things. That doesn't make them my mentor. Like, Jeff Augustus, although you told me not to drop names, he was a district manager in Baja Fresh in the East Coast. And, what he showed me is communication. And not so much by having too many meetings or, calling me all the time, but the way that when he was in the restaurants was able to communicate with people, even with the cooks. He didn't speak a word of Spanish and he was Italian. And he would walk into the restaurants and find ways to communicate with the cooks. He took the time to understand them and to listen to what they needed. And I've never seen a district manager do that, especially one that didn't speak the language of the cooks. So to me, it was like, oh my God, if this guy cares so much about our cooks and he goes beyond to understand them, even though he doesn't speak the language, I love that about him, and I learned that from him, and I took it from him, and I kept using it. The other thing too, when we opened the Baja Fresh in Montgomeryville in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, it was so busy, and I was working like 7 days a week for like 2-3 weeks straight. One Sunday he walks in and says, "Go home." He's like, "I'm going to work the shift for you. You haven't seen your family." And I went home and he ran the shift for me. Like no one had ever done anything like that for me. So I took that back. He will go into the kitchen and wash dishes. It's like I had never seen that from a district manager before. And that's what I want to be if I become a district manager. Like I want to do that. And a lot of what I do today, when I was in San Juan Capistrano on Thursday last week, and I was making fries, and because the team needed support, and I don't shy away from that. Like I love that stuff, and to me, servant leadership is what he taught me, and I learned it from Jeff, and I kept doing it.
I love Jeff. Do you still keep in touch with him? No, I was waiting for the climax of the story. You saying, yeah, like I went to drinks with Jeff last week.
That's why he's not kind of a mentor, because that's what I learned from him. Like in the 6 months that I worked with him, or maybe less than a year, and I'd never seen him ever again.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the last time I talked to him was Danny, our founder, called him to ask about my performance, and we connected and said, "Hey, this guy Danny Senenchen called me asking me about you." And that's the last time I talked to him.
How many years ago was that?
20.
Oh, I thought this was like recently. I was like, why is Danny asking about your performance recently?
No, before Danny hired me 20 years ago.
20 years ago. That's the last time. Do you have him on LinkedIn or something?
I tried calling him and nothing. And I looked for him on LinkedIn and he's
not there? Well, if you guys, Jeff, if you're hearing this, we're looking for you.
You have my number, Jeff. Call me. No, but yeah. So I don't know so much about mentors. I don't think I can say that there's been great people that I've learned from, like from Danny to, he's one of the most amazing humans and most willing to give that I've ever seen. And I've learned that from him. Also, he's an amazing business owner, and the way he negotiates and the way he goes about his business. And I learned that from Danny. So, but I wouldn't consider him my mentor, but I've learned so much from him, and I'm so grateful to all the opportunities he gave me.
I think when people get into, I was reading about mentors not so long ago, actually, because I was like, I kind of want a mentor. Like, where do I find one? Like, I was going down a rabbit hole of figuring out the whole mentorship situation. But then I realized that a lot of the people that have mentors, the reason the mentor is their mentor is because they emulate their style, and they are so caught up in trying to be like the mentor that they forget that they can deviate and create their own style. They don't need to take everything from the mentor. They can take parts of it and then kind of spin it into their own.
That's a risk. I don't know if I agree 100% what we just said right now, but I can see how that could be a risk for sure, that you forget about your style and you want to do that. Or if you call a mentor, you give them your problem or the situation, and that mentor gives you more doubt than confidence, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because I think as a mentor, you need to give people some confidence and a little bit of an out, right? Or some guidance. But if you walk away and you're second doubting yourself even more, I don't know if that person is necessarily your mentor.
Yeah. It reminds me when I call my mom for advice, and I think I leave with more doubts than with a solution to the problem.
Your mom is not your mentor.
My mom is not my mentor. A mom,
But that's why I also start here. Like, I don't say that I mentor anyone, because that's tough. Like, the pressure to like, oh, you're my mentor. I'm like, holy fuck. Like, that's a lot of responsibility on anybody's shoulder to be able to mentor someone. So I don't want that responsibility, to be honest with you. And so I teach people what I know in the circumstances when they allow me in, or when they tell me something. I give people my opinions, and I try to influence if I feel like that's going to benefit them. But I don't want to mentor people.
I think you've unintentionally mentored people. I think.
Fine, but it's not intentional. And I don't want that responsibility. I really don't.
You got the responsibility without asking for it.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't think that I'm in a position to mentor either, because I think most of you still work for me. Most people that will seek advice from me still work in the company. And I think that the best advice comes from let me rephrase that. The most impact a mentor can make is when there isn't that relationship of work. Because I think if you come to me and ask me for advice, there's always going to be a little sense, well, he wants what's best for the company and for me, but there's always going to be a mix of work and stuff. So, but if we don't work anymore together, and you call me, you know that the work stuff is on the side, that every advice that I'm giving you is actually what I want for you and how I can help you and support you, and not the company.
That's true, because there is no, conflict of interest anymore?
Exactly.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so I've been here for 20 years, and everyone that has seen me in a leadership role, for the most part, works with me at some shape or form. So I don't think I mentored anyone to that level.
I see that. I think you have a lot of influence, especially with the people that you had relationships the longest, and I think that relationship is evolving into a mentorship. But like you said, I think the conflict of interest point is very, very valid, to where there's still that line of what's best for them, what's best for the company, and what's best for both. And
not to mention how hard it is for people to go to their boss and to ask for advice, because that means you have to be vulnerable, that you need the advice, that you don't have the answer, or that you have doubts on your answer. And that's also very difficult, right? So that's why I also feel like when I leave this company, I think most people are going to call me more, and I'm going to have better relationships with everyone, because there isn't the fear of my boss is going to know I don't know the answer, or that I'm having doubts. So I think that would be pretty cool.
You're right about that. I think in the beginning, in my opinion, it was embarrassing to be like, oh, like, you promoted me, I still have 100 bajillion questions. And I think as I learned more, and obviously as I matured and grew older as well, I think the vulnerability of saying, I don't know the answer and I'm willing to reach out for help and, help me, is a lot more powerful than trying to figure out and scrambling for the answer on my own, just to show you that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. By the way, you just said something and it made me remember a quote that Ramiro says all the time. It's training and development doesn't stop after you promote someone. You know, you're training someone and you're developing them. And then once they get promoted, that's not when the development stops. That's not when the training stops. It continues even after people get promoted. And there's this notion of, well, I trained you, you should know now. Well, no, I'm still learning. And you can't teach me in 8 weeks everything I need to know to be confident and successful at my job. That's stupid. It's ridiculous. So I remind everyone, when you promote a shift leader, when you promote a GM, when you promote a DM, whatever position you're promoting, be even more engaged on this person's development. Be even more engaged on how they're doing. You don't need to micromanage them, but you need to be in a position to notice. That's the fourth time I say that, because I truly believe that.
Can I, on the podcast, can we take a shot every time you say you need to be in a position to notice, or whatever you say?
I do have some, like the whiskey bottles over there that we haven't opened. But it's important to be in a position to notice, because I think when you're a leader, there is some autonomy that comes with being somewhat detached that you can benefit from. But if you become too detached, there's a real disadvantage as a leader to know how to help and support.
I learned that, I think, at some point last year. You and I were having a conversation as well, where I thought that being in the trenches meant that I was being very impactful, and doing a lot meant that I was being a good leader and stuff. And, you know, we talked about the whole 70-30 theory, where 70% of your time should be occupied with pre-established tasks, and then 30% should be free, so you can be in a position to notice, so you can be in a position to jump in and help one of your team members if they're struggling.
Or even just be available, Sergio.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times your team wants to come to you. If your door's fucking closed, no one's going to go in.
My door's closed because of the AC, right?
Wow.
In my defense.
And you can't always be busy, and you can't always be booked. And if you tell your team, I'm busy, that goes in their subconscious, and they're like, well, I can't bug my leader because he's always busy. So I used to think the same way as you, is that I needed to occupy my 10 hours of work, or my 9 hours of work, or my 11 hours of work with something. And I've realized that I do need that 30% of time just to be available. Even if we're in the kitchen having stupid conversations over lunch, like, you know, those moments are important.
Yeah, and I think that creates a better dynamic and a better relationship. And in the long run, it converts to a better, making you more approachable to your team members. But I think that's probably one of the most valuable things I've learned recently. And ever since I started implementing that more often, I've seen a lot of the benefits that I had personally and with my team as well, because now I can really jump in and help, or take things, or even spend a little bit more time with them. We're getting close to the end of our episode, so I want to ask you a couple more questions, actually. So,
yes, sir.
You talked a little bit about the most influential leader that you've had. Now, I want to ask you the most influential manager that you had, because I think that you've experienced both.
Yeah, I've had some managers that I've learned so much of, and it wasn't because they were great. It was because they weren't. And I'm not going to name drop on this one because it's not as positive. But I did have a manager when I was in Baja Fresh, and you know, he was a delegator, and it used to bug the shit out of me. It bugged me so much that he was like, "Can you do the schedule? Can you do the order? And, you know, can you come in and do a mid because I need to leave early?" And I didn't realize at the time, like, that was all good for me. That gave me repetitions. That gave me the ability to make decisions. That gave me the ability to make mistakes and learn from them. So for all of you young leaders out there that get so mad because your GM is asking you to do something, shut the hell up and just do it, because you're benefiting from the reps. It's like you're in a soccer league, you're in a baseball league, and they're giving you the chance to go up at bat. They're giving you the chance to kick the penalty kicks. They're giving you the chance. Just take it. Don't complain about work when it's only making you better. Every repetition makes you better. Every single one of them. You only get better through repetitions, not through training, not through education. All those are the base that you need to understand what you're doing. But the only way you get good at something is through repetition. And then that brings confidence. And then confidence brings promotions. And then promotions brings more money. And then you find passion. Once you find the money and you're good at something, you're like, oh, shit, I'm passionate about this. Why are you passionate? Because you're making money and you're good at it.
Damn. Is that the recipe?
That was my recipe. I never wanted to work in restaurants ever. And then when I was started making the money and I'm like, well, wait, I think I'm kind of good at this because people are willing to pay me this much money. And we're like, that's where the passion came from.
I'm going to ask you a question. You don't have to answer, but I'm curious. What was your first I made it check? Like, what were the zeros on that? Are you going to answer that?
I'm not going to answer that. But you know what? I'll tell you something. I think I'll tell you when I felt like I made it. And I realize now that I did not. But it felt like I did. Like in hindsight, it was like, oh, what a dumbass. That was not the moment. But when I tell you when I felt it and I felt like a switch come on or off, I should say on. When I had the opportunity, when Danny hired me here and I had the opportunity to build something from scratch, the amount of passion that I had for being not my own boss because Danny was still here, obviously, but the trust that he embedded in me, like for me to be able to say, okay, you're going to build 9 more restaurants and you're going to build this 10 restaurant district or region, and you're it, like you are it when it comes to operations and everything that happens within the 4 walls of those restaurants. That really changed my mentality, and it empowered me. It gave me confidence, and it allowed me to make all these mistakes that actually have taught me all these lessons that got me to where we are today, 163 stores or 164 this Friday in 5 different states. Like that was 20 years ago. And I couldn't have done it without that change of chip and because of that platform that Danny gave me and that confidence and support that he gave me allowed me to like think of myself as an owner. And more importantly, think of myself as you're it. You don't have an HR department behind you. Like you have to be the one doing payroll. You have to be the one making the right decisions. Like you need to show up to work because that's what is needed. Like you're not on a schedule. Like if I didn't go to this store, no one was going to go and check. Like Danny wasn't checking the cameras to see if I was in Bell Gardens. Like it was me that needed to have the drive to get the fuck out of bed and go there. You know, and I think that allowed me like having that freedom, like, oh shit, I care about this. And that changed my mentality completely.
I think on the next episode, we really need to take a deep dive because I have so many questions on how you run an entire business without payroll, without an HR department, without a training team, without someone that does all of your LTO rollouts. How do you do it all? You don't have to answer that now, but I want to revisit that conversation because I think that is such a crazy concept. I can picture you doing payroll. I can picture you doing HR. You're like, oh, we got to do this. We got to do that on top of running the entire thing. That is crazy.
When it came to the 4 walls of the store, yeah, that was. But I loved it though because you learn so much. You become so what, Sergio? There was times where I had to install POS machines. Seriously, it's like I was IT. It was, but again, like I learned how to program a modem because I started working here.
But now Chris shows you how to minimize the screen on your Mac.
You guys have made me lazy and inept. Because I have you guys now. I don't know how to do this. Show me. But before there was no one. The resources were not there. I had to do it. When you are it gives you this level of commitment and you don't want to let anybody down. And I think that's why important when I have conversations with managers or even with the shift leaders, when you're leading a shift, you're fucking it. Like if something happens, you're it for the GMs too. And I think when that clicks, it gives you so much confidence and empowerment of like, I got this. And you don't want to fail. You know why? Because when you're it, you're not failing. You're failing others, but you're also failing yourself.
I had an I'm it moment. This one time it was so busy. And like, I think 2 people called out. So we were short staffed. And I was like, damn, nobody's coming. This is it.
Yeah.
This is all we have.
Yeah.
And I remember I was working by myself. I was working the shift. I think it was a Friday or a Saturday night. Super busy. And I panicked a little bit. I was like, oh, well, what do I do? And I called people. Nobody could come. And I was like, okay, nobody's coming to save. And, it was in that moment where I was like, okay, cool. Like, I need to figure out who's good where. And we need to just make this work because nobody's coming. And at the end of the day, this is me and this is all we got. And we need to take it out. And I remember it was the craziest rush. But something that I miss about being in the restaurant is right when you take out like the craziest rush and stuff is going left and right and boxes are going, bags are going, things are beeping. And right when everything like comes to a stop and then you realize that like everything is good, and like you look at the cooks and you look at everybody's like smiling and like we did it, and everybody's high-fiving. I love that high that gave you. And it was like,
But it's not a high. You know what it is? When you were driving home that night, there was a sense of ownership. There was a sense of confidence. There was a sense of belonging. There was a sense of just this. I don't like you did it. I'm looking for the word. It was
accomplishment.
Accomplishment. And that, to me, when you feel accomplished, that fills any void you can ever have.
I will argue and say that it is a high, because you literally, like, I don't know how to describe the feeling. It's like when you run a marathon and you realize that you ran that, even though there was so much.
Because you accomplished a marathon.
You're done. I'm done with you. No, but that was crazy to me. Wow, this was such a good episode. Any closing thoughts on leadership versus management?
No, I think don't label yourself. Allow yourself to learn and give yourself some grace. Because I think a lot of times you're like, well, I'm not good at this stuff. I'm a manager, not a leader. I'm not charismatic. I'm not outspoken. I don't make people smile in conversations. Don't label yourself. Give yourself grace. You'll learn things. Be authentic. Be your own self. You don't have to be this leader that is charismatic to lead. There's quiet leaders. There's people that in silence can lead a group of people with no problem. You don't have to be the loudest one in the room. You just have to be assertive and be in a position to notice so that you can lead and be authentic. Be authentic. Don't try to be a leader you're not, because people will read through you incredibly fast. You need to be authentic. People love authentic. They'll love you for it. Even if you're not perfect, your team will forgive you for your shortcomings. Trust me, being authentic is the best way to lead.
Authenticity.
Yes, sir.
If you're listening to this, comment how many times he said, what did you say all episode? I already forgot.
Be in a position to notice.
Be in a position to notice. Comment how many times George said be in a position to notice. Winner will send you merch. Just kidding. Maybe. Awesome. Thanks, George. We're so excited to pick up our podcast. We'll see you guys on episode number 3.
Thanks, everyone. And by the way, remember, these are our experiences, and we're not responsible if you listen to this and you follow everything we said and you end up in the bottom of the freeway without a home. Please, take these advices with a grain of salt. We do them with the best intentions. And hopefully it helps some of you. But thank you.
Thanks for tapping into The Next Shift, Moving Up in the Restaurant Industry, hosted by George Luis Ortiz Garcia. If you're about that restaurant life or love a good underdog story, make sure to follow, share, and stay tuned. New episodes drop bi-weekly. Until next time.